Okay. Camera works this time. Microphone works this time. We're off to a good start. Hi everyone. Welcome to Q1's Q&A. Let's start. If you have questions, feel free to type them in the chat and I'll answer them. Pretty simple, really. That's it. You can talk about stocks, you can talk about the general markets, you can ask me questions about my trading strategy, about past performance, about my expectations for the year, the future, trends that I look at, anything like that. Whatever you feel like asking, really. If it's really inappropriate, then obviously I won't answer it, but generally I'm open to pretty much anything. What are your thoughts on Coinbase? I have a position in Coinbase. It's really, really small. I think the valuation was a little bit high, but I also, I'm confident in them over the long term. They're basically, them and Binance are the two big brands in crypto in terms of, buying and selling and trading. And I think especially since I think most of the kind of traders, especially retail, obviously, are already on board with crypto. It's mainly going to be the kind of the older generations and the more hesitant people that are going to be adopting the less technologically capable. And I think Coinbase is essentially kind of geared towards those people, especially. And the other thing is that again. Binance and Coinbase are the two exchanges that really handle most of the volume for institutions as well. So I'm kind of bullish on them just in terms of the product. I think the price point isn't fantastic, but the valuation isn't outrageous, really. I don't think either. So I have 0.5% invested. I think I'm drawn down maybe 6 or 7% at the moment. I'm pretty bullish on it overall. Oof, it's going to be another day of trying to keep up with the chat. Let's see. What are your thoughts on altcoins? I don't think alt season is over yet. Like Ethereum is still pushing new highs even today. If you consider that an altcoin, I guess it's more of a major coin. I think there's a lot of projects that have been neglected for a while. There's a lot of projects that started back in the 2016, 2017 kind of ETH hype period that were actually really good projects, and now they're starting to kind of come back again, and we're seeing them shine. And at the same time, we've obviously got all of the stuff going on with DeFi, all the stuff going on with NFTs. There's much more institutional stuff. We're seeing like the next generation of smart contract chains and chains that provide Oracle services and services that allow you to trade cross-chain. We're seeing innovation in terms of trading stocks and shares via cryptocurrency as well. Generally, I think there's going to be a lot of altcoins that do really, really well, but we've already seen a big run for a lot of them. I still think it's important to remember just how big the market is for just Bitcoin, though. I think people neglect that a bit, and I think people underplay the risk of picking altcoin winners as well. When compared with Bitcoin, if you can make like a few 100% or something in Bitcoin over a couple of years, or maybe you could make 3 times that amount if you pick the right altcoin. But I would say that the risk in picking the correct altcoin is more than 3x. So it's about the risk to reward, really. I still have most of my personal cryptocurrency in Bitcoin, and most of my eToro crypto allocation is still in Bitcoin as well. Only narrowly. Like it's the biggest position, but it's less than 50%. But I mean, like in terms of specifics, I guess you'd have to ask me about a specific coin. But I don't follow the crypto market as much as I used to, purely because it moves so quickly. It's hard to keep up. But if you have a question about a specific one, then feel free to ask, and I'll try and answer it. Bitcoin price for the end of 2020. Obviously, not financial advice. I should have said that at the start. Obviously, none of this is financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Past performance is not indicative of future results, all of that stuff. But if I were to kind of put my finger in the air and pick a target for Bitcoin, I would say that somewhere around 90 to 100K seems likely this year. So still some pretty good upside of, almost 90% upside or so if you are buying now. Since mid-Feb, we are moving down or sideways. When do you expect to change? So I don't think that's necessarily entirely true. So I'm going to bring up the chart of my performance for you to take a look at. So you can see, if I just scale it roughly so that there's a year on the screen. Okay, so there we go. This is the start of 2021, right? So up here, this little gap here, that's the day I was copy blocked. So from here on, nobody knew could copy me. And then this is our performance since then. So you can see that, February had this huge boom, and that was mainly because of the stuff going on with the meme stocks and the stuff that was going on with a massive rally in like solar and wind companies, a lot of the companies I was investing in. We saw the big pullback in March and the rotation into kind of more brick and mortar, slow and steady companies and out of growth stocks into kind of more protected and safer investments. As people thought reopening was going to happen into airlines and things like that. We got really caught out by that move. So yeah, not great. Crypto was obviously pulled down by it as well at the same time. And I actually reduced my crypto exposure around there as well. March was, essentially flat from where we started to where we finished, but very volatile. And I think April's looking healthy. You can call this sideways. I mean, the thing is, you're comparing to up here, right? But what you need to understand is that this bit here wasn't normal. Really, what you want to do is you want to just draw the line from where we started to where we finished the month, right? And that was kind of diagonal along here. And like if you look at the kind of like the overall trend of the year, I mean, I could even just draw a line, right? If I can find how to even do that, this is the trend essentially for the year of copying me. And actually, if you zoom out, you can see that it's the trend just generally. We can even go last 2 years, which is as far as eToro will take you, and you can see the trend, right? Like, and look at this little bubble here on that trend, right? That was clearly unsustainable. I believe I even said at the time, like, this is a wild month. Don't expect to end this high. So yeah, if you kind of take that out of the equation, we're not really moving sideways yet. It's a little bit slow at the moment. But it's really not too bad, to be completely honest. I'm pretty okay with the progress. We're still on track for somewhere around 50%, which is essentially my target for the year. Obviously, a lot can change. That's far from guaranteed, but yeah, I'm pretty happy with how things are progressing, to be honest. What are your top 3 stock picks for 2021 and 2022? Well, I mean, they're going to change on a weekly basis almost, especially at the moment. So we've got earnings going on. Ford had their earnings last night, and they actually had a really, really good quarter, but the semiconductor shortage just hit them hard, and that's why they're tanking a bit today. So, if you were to ask me yesterday, I wouldn't include Ford in that list. But if you ask me today, I would say that Ford is a nice, attractive price to pick it up. Peloton is one I've been talking about a lot recently. I think Peloton is really undervalued. I don't think people really understand just how strong their brand is. There's a great article on Seeking Alpha about Peloton that dove into, the cost per workout, essentially, of owning Peloton products and comparing that with gym memberships, and also looking at the retention of users and brand loyalty metrics, and Peloton is up there with some of the best. If I was going to pick a third one at the moment, probably AMD. I mean, if you look at my portfolio, you'll see that the positions I've just mentioned are essentially my biggest stock positions. So, I guess if you want to see what my top picks are, look at what my portfolio is holding in the highest quantity, because those are my highest conviction plays. So yeah, I guess that's kind of a short answer to your question. Do you plan on recycling the positions faster so we can get into sync in less than 3 months? No. It's I think purposefully doing it faster, like it's a never ending thing, right? Like I'm already doing 2,000 plus trades a year. I'm doing almost 50 trades a week. If you compare me to anyone else on eToro, pretty much I'm the highest of almost anyone. So I think what I'm doing is reasonable. I don't think 3 months is really that much to ask. Remember, it's 3 months for 100% ish of your portfolio to get synced, but you will be mainly synced within 2 months. So yeah, and also that there's a lot of complexities around that as well. If it's a stock that has relatively low liquidity, then it's not as simple as me just recycling the positions. I am kind of moving more and more towards being facing the issues that hedge funds face, where they want to buy a position in the stock and they want to buy 4 or 5% of their portfolio in exposure to a stock, and the market cap of that stock is only, let's say, $1 or $2 billion. Then they're going to struggle to get the liquidity to even open those trades, and that's a problem that I genuinely face on a few stocks some of the time on eToro, especially some of the non-US stocks that just have lower volume generally. They're not as actively traded markets. So it's not as simple as that. There are some positions that if I close it, I might not be able to reopen it again. So I have to think about that when I'm doing this. Yeah, so I think 3 months is reasonable. Like you've got to think that as well that my recommended copy time, and I know that most people don't follow this unfortunately, but the recommended minimum copy duration is like 18 months. And honestly, even that I would say is pretty conservative. Like you need to be thinking long term. Like what are you saving this money for? Are you saving it for a house? Are you saving it for your retirement? In my mind, those probably are the two main things that you should be investing for. You shouldn't be investing because you want to spend it next year on a holiday, right? That's short term and that's short sighted, and it means that you can get caught out by the markets potentially. So yeah, I think 3 months is reasonable. And yeah, I don't think I'm going to change from what I'm doing at the moment. But yeah, I mean, hopefully eToro changes that you can copy open trades when you're adding funds. That would solve the problem, obviously, as well. Thoughts on Porsche's e-fuel? I'm not actually sure if I've read about this. E-fuel. I'm just going to Google it quickly just to make sure that I don't dig myself in a hole. And also, I'm kind of curious if it is something that. Oh, this is the synthetic fuel stuff that. Yeah, I have seen this. Siemens are working on this, aren't they? Yeah, I wouldn't read too much into it, honestly. Yeah, I think for motor vehicles, I don't think really you're going to beat batteries. Certainly not in the kind of medium term. Maybe in the long term, we can find something that's going to work out more cost effective and more sustainable, because obviously batteries degrade and they have to be recycled, and certain types of batteries that's very, very difficult, and you can't really recycle all of the battery. But I think that the kind of experimentation that's going in other types of fuel are pretty far behind. Even hydrogen isn't really that viable for vehicles, I don't think. Possibly, I say for vehicles, for like cars, or auto vehicles. It can work for some of the long range stuff, maybe. And perhaps they could make it viable to compete with electric vehicles, but I wouldn't be betting on it. And I certainly don't think you really want to bet on something like this. I mean, it's interesting that they're doing it, but yeah, not something that I'm super kind of behind, I guess. I don't see it as a threat to the status quo at the moment. What are your thoughts on BNB? I don't hold any BNB in the portfolio at the moment. I took most of my profits around 500 to 600 area on eToro. And for the time being, I think it's pretty overbaked. I think actually that we realistically, we should start seeing a movement against Binance Smart Chain and Binance generally. I think that Binance potentially are in hot water. I think I saw a headline that they're potentially in hot water with the crypto stocks that they're working on. And that's potentially illegal in Germany. I think it was saying that what they're doing is illegal, and I do think that they're kind of skirting the lines of what is legal and what isn't with that kind of stuff. I think Binance Smart Chain is obviously pretty centralized, and it's kind of against the point of DeFi. And I think it's kind of got this weird Coinbase situation where the craze that happened around DeFi and the rally of the past couple of months in DeFi products has been focused around if it's on Binance, then it's a good project. I don't think that's really true. And actually, there's a lot of really good projects that aren't using Binance Smart Chain, and I think that competition is going to increase over time, not decrease. And also just generally the wider ecosystem as well. I mean, the biggest some of the biggest kind of stuff going on in the space at the moment is what's happening with PayPal and Visa and MasterCard, and all of those are working with the likes of Paxos and USDC and stable coins like that, which operate through Ethereum. So generally, yeah, I'm not super bullish on it. The tokenomics are still decent for it. The exchange is still obviously going to have a lot of volume. I said earlier that along with Coinbase, they're the exchange that really is kind of dominant in the market. But I don't think that at the current price it's really that attractive anymore. I think you're probably better off actually going back towards Ethereum and some of the classic, if you would call it that, legacy DeFi products and some of the kind of more legacy infrastructure even. I mean, again, as I said earlier, I think people underestimate Bitcoin. I also think they underestimate Ethereum as well at the moment. When do you get unblocked for new copiers? There is no news on that. I actually put this on almost every post I make on eToro now because the question is becoming a bit of a meme almost. Maybe you're asking it for the memes. Maybe you're asking it legitimately. I'm not sure, but it's not on the horizon at the moment that I'm aware of, at least. And as soon as it is on my radar, as soon as eToro tell me anything about it, then obviously I'll let everyone know. But for the time being, you should assume that I'm not going to be copyable for the foreseeable future. Maybe a year, maybe 2 years, maybe forever. Who knows? I would really hope to be copyable, but for the time being, I'm not. Well, what's your thought on solar companies? Would it go further down? Good moment to buy. Yeah, I think what happened with Enphase during the earnings was interesting. So actually, we saw SolarEdge drop because of Enphase, and essentially Enphase's problems stem from the semiconductor shortage. And actually, we saw Solar more widely drop as a result of that. But I think it's worth considering that Enphase works. Enphase's big innovation was microinverters, right? So tiny little inverters, one for every solar panel, pretty much. I mean, you don't have to use it that way, but that's most common. And so you've got like a little circuit board for every single one of those to work. Whereas with SolarEdge, for example, their inverters or ABB or whoever. Insert your solar inverter here. Obviously, they're going to use one board, not lots of little ones, and that one board will be maybe a bit more powerful or whatever to control everything. So those companies should be less affected than Enphase in terms of the semiconductor side of things. In terms of the whole industry, I think it got really hyped up. Obviously, after Biden's inauguration, everyone was super excited for his green policies. Then it all went quiet for a bit, and everything dropped when March kind of unfolded, and that sector was hit particularly hard. I still think that realistically, ultimately, when you look at what's going on with the conferences at the moment, what Biden is saying, what the UK is saying, even what China is saying, it's inevitable that every country in the world is going to be massively investing in this space, in solar, in wind, in hydrogen, whatever renewable is sensible for their country. And realistically, most countries are going to have a pretty broad mix. So I think that solar is just destined to do well. So the safe way to do it is to maybe use one of the ETFs like TAN, for example, to get exposure to that, or eToro's renewable energy copy portfolio, or obviously, if you want to dig into some of the stocks, then you can do that as well. But I think what we're seeing at the moment is basically short-term hiccups. There's a lot of growth priced into this industry. The PE ratios are pretty high. But again, I think if you're looking at it pragmatically and just the way the world is going, the view that younger generations have, and younger generations are obviously getting older and moving into positions where they have more purchasing power, they have more decision making power, and more influence generally over what's happening in the world. And everyone young is behind this technology. So I can only see it growing substantially. And I think if you compare the growth that's likely in that industry compared with the general market, it's going to outperform most sectors. So yeah, a good investment generally, I think. But you have to have a long-term mindset, I think. What do you think the growth potential is like for the main cryptos going forward? Bitcoin, ETH, and others you like. Well, I mentioned that I think in terms of this year that that Bitcoin, I think potentially could be hitting 100K or so within the next year. I'm certainly confident of it. I think maybe I'll kind of move your question around a bit and make it a bit more broad, and what is the future of cryptocurrencies and of crypto projects, and where do those big coins kind of fit into that? And I think a lot of the interesting DeFi products in dApps and stablecoins have been built on Ethereum. And I think we can really see that trend accelerating, especially on the stablecoin side of things at the moment, like institutionally. And then, some of the other DeFi products, whether it be decentralized exchanges and things like that. Again, I can see a huge market for that. The likes of MasterCard and Visa, I think it's MasterCard that have actually working on Ethereum directly out of those two. But yeah, I think you're going to see more stuff like that. The trend of major corporations putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet, I think, is going to continue. And I think probably maybe towards the end of this year, maybe next year, we'll start seeing some of the more kind of out there companies, perhaps Tesla, adding other cryptocurrencies on top. So Ethereum, maybe. That would be, the one that I would expect most. So yeah, I think those are two trends that are worth looking at. And then I guess the third one is, the next level up from that would be central banks. The Swedish central bank came out and said that they don't rule out having cryptocurrency on their own balance sheets, essentially in their own holdings within the next 5 years. There's plenty of companies investigating creating their own cryptocurrencies, and realistically, what are they going to build it on? They're probably going to build it on top of one of the bigger blockchains out there if they're sensible. So again, that probably means Ethereum. It might mean Bitcoin, potentially. Yeah. So I think those are the things that I'm kind of looking at in terms of like the big macro trends that are coming in the future of crypto, and it's just about kind of positioning for those. Obviously, there's going to be all sorts of like smaller altcoins and smaller individual products. Projects that do really well, but in terms of like the big stuff, like those are really the themes you're looking at, and those are the things that are really going to move the market in a big way. In exactly the same way we saw when MicroStrategy added Bitcoin to their balance sheet. It wasn't very long before Tesla did it, before Square did it, and all of these other companies are kind of lining up now to add Bitcoin. And I'm sure during this earnings season that's taking place now, we might hear a few more companies doing the same thing. So yeah, that trend's going to accelerate as well. So I think those are the bullish things for those cryptocurrencies. I know I'm super far behind chat, by the way. I'm really sorry. I'll try and go as quickly as I can, but I don't want to I don't want to not answer your questions properly. So, how did you manage to push down all major Western indices at the start of your stream? Yeah, well, I have this habit actually. Every time I live stream, the markets tend to go down. That's becoming a bit of a meme on my Discord, which, by the way, you can feel free to join if you would like. Could you please cycle older positions faster? Yeah, I've discussed that. Will this be up on YouTube? It will be up on YouTube tomorrow. Basically, as soon as the stream's ended, I download it from here. I remove all the intro music at the start because that's boring. Nobody on YouTube needs to watch that. You guys got here early, so I thought I'd put some music on for you. Yeah, and then I'll upload it. So it should be on YouTube. It takes a while to process because they're quite long videos. So it'll probably be up tomorrow, like by midday-ish or something. I'm trying to bulk and you look like you're doing it yourself. I'm bulky in the way that is not healthy. I am the worst person to ask on that. I'm afraid. Don't ask me. My diet is horrific. My exercise is horrific. Yeah, no, don't ask me on those things. I'm sorry. Any illusions of me being a healthy individual, yeah, throw those out the window immediately. That's just not true. I'm sorry. I'd like to be, but I have a bit of a problem going from in my brain thinking, you should do some exercise, to actually doing the exercise. Peloton. What do you think about Peloton? Worth buying the dip? Price is really good. Yeah, I'm incredibly bullish on Peloton. I was hoping someone would ask about Peloton. I think that what's going on with the like fuss around the Peloton Tread Plus is laughable, completely laughable. I mean, not laughable, obviously, that a child died, and that there have been other injuries of children and of pets, I believe, as well. But if you look it up, every year in the US there are about 20,000 deaths related to gym equipment. That's a lot of deaths, and treadmills are certainly up there as one of the leading culprits. And this isn't something unique to the Peloton whatsoever. Yes, the Peloton design perhaps could be improved a bit, and maybe Peloton are working on that now because obviously they're aware of it, and they want to try and control damage from this story. And protect their reputation. But realistically, is anyone actually who has kids, for example, and is thinking of buying the Peloton Tread, gonna think, "Ooh, a child has died because they were left alone with a treadmill while it was turned on because I left the key there, unsupervised." Are they really going to think, "Oh, I shouldn't buy this thing," or are they just going to think, "I'll make sure that I just take the key with me when I'm not using the treadmill," or likewise, just supervising their kids better, or whatever it is. I mean, there's all sorts of precautions that you can take to protect against that, and I just don't see anyone really being put off from purchasing it. I don't see it happening. Certainly, I don't see current Peloton owners getting really concerned about it or anything. Again, like it's a very preventable thing, and not that I'm trying to blame the parents or anything, but I think that it was preventable ultimately, and I don't think it's any worse than the other treadmills. So that story alone is responsible for like a 10% drop, and at most it should be responsible for like 0.25% drop. And then on top of that, I think that people are really skeptical about how they're going to do in a post-COVID world. First of all, the first problem with that is that we're not in a post-COVID world, and people are overly optimistic about what a post-COVID world would look like, I think. I do not think that even in the Western world, where we're hitting very good vaccine numbers in the UK, Israel, US, I think we're still going to be in a position where potentially there is a new strain that is resistant to the vaccine, and we have to go through this whole thing all over again as it spreads around the world all over again. So until we've got most of the major nations in the world at a good vaccine level, I'm still very cautious about the idea of there not being further lockdowns and things over the next 5 years or so, which I know sounds really pessimistic, but I think it's just like a realistic kind of thing to have in your head, right? Like that this could continue for a longer period of time, and things can get worse again. Hopefully they don't, but it's very possible, especially with the rate at which it's spreading through Brazil and India at the moment, for example. So that's the first problem with that assumption, and the second thing is the assumption that people are going to want to go back to gyms again, where you have to wait in queue to go on a piece of equipment, you have to pay extra to get classes, you have to pay extra to use certain types of equipment, you have to travel there, you have to do all of these things, and you're paying essentially per workout a very similar price to what you would be paying at home if you had bought the Peloton on finance. Peloton's brand is one of the strongest there is. Brand loyalty is insane. The average user spends does I think 5 workouts per week, which is a lot and more than most people would do at a gym. So yeah, I think everything's in their favor. Yeah, there's more competition. There's Echelon, there's Mirror, there's all of this other stuff out there. Apple Fitness. But they don't have the brand, they don't have the first mover advantage. Peloton is going to expand towards gyms and things as gyms become more desperate to bring people back in. I think Peloton have just got a lot going in their favor at the moment, to be honest. And I think the share price right now, for me, in my opinion, is really cheap. And I've been increasing my position in it over the past 3 or 4 days. That was a long answer. I'm sorry. I know there's loads more to get through, but yeah. What do you think on FTCV, eToro? Can you give us some information about it? Not really. I can tell you what I think about the company. I can't really comment on the share price and stuff, or valuation or anything like that, because that would obviously be a conflict of interest, since potentially I have a substantial impact on the value of the company, or could manipulate or do something. So obviously I'm going to avoid all of that. Obviously I like eToro, right? I've been on eToro for 7 years now. I liked it before I became a Porsche investor. I still copy people now in another portfolio that's private. I have friends and family who use it. I think that it is definitely a big part of the future of investing, and kind of delegating some of your capital towards doing what other people are doing. I think that that's just a really cool idea. So yeah, I like it. I like the company. I like what they're doing. Me and Yoni get on really well. I'm a big fan of Yoni, just as a person generally. I think he's awesome. So yeah, I like it, but I can't really say anything more than that, really. Yeah, that's all you're going to get on that, I'm afraid. And you'll find the same answer if you ask any other popular investors as well, I think. So sorry, we can't be of more help. How much attention do you give to crypto TA? Not that much. I don't really give much TA attention to anything, but I do give more on crypto because crypto does trade much more on it, because TA is basically a self-fulfilling thing. There isn't really very much evidence behind it working besides self-fulfilling prophecy. So I guess take that as you will. I use mainly Fibonacci's, moving averages, volume data, the RSI, really basic stuff, to be honest. But I would say that actually for crypto, I more trade on sentiment and on the kind of things I was talking about earlier, where you're thinking about what the next big kind of trend is. That's the way I look at it. Any news on the copy block? Nope. How do you see equity markets faring when the Fed starts to taper and also taxes begin to rise? Yeah. Okay. So tax-wise, I don't think it's going to be a big deal, as big a deal as everyone makes it out to be. Uh, I guess it kind of depends on the business, but realistically, like, I mean, I guess, you could argue that a lot of the tech companies could quite easily kind of move offshore and things, but I think what Biden's doing with Europe and a few other nations to try and negotiate the minimum corporate tax rate is a sensible solution for everyone, really. Obviously there's going to be losers like Ireland and some of the other countries that try and kind of skirt on the edges of that and offer really discounted rates. But generally, I don't think it's going to be that big of a threat. I don't think you're going to really see very many companies kind of moving around for it. The tax rates that they're going for aren't actually that insane. In terms of the capital gain stuff, I did actually comment a bit on that on um, Twitter. Essentially, I don't think unless you're actually like a fund of some sort, or a really, an ultra high net worth rather than just a high net worth, I don't think you're really likely to even bother trying to avoid it because it's a lot of work. And again, if you compare those rates to the UK, they're not really so bad. In terms of the kind of the changes from the Fed in terms of the easing and support for the markets, and when that turns off and how quickly that turns off. Yeah, it's hard to say until it starts. Really, I don't think we're really going to see that kick in until next year. Everyone's still far too concerned about the economy at the moment. Um, yeah, it's going to be one of those things that I think is going to be kind of sector specific in terms of its impact as well. Inflation is obviously going to be interesting to watch, but um, I don't know. I don't think there's really that much I can really. I don't think there's really that much color I can add to it, really. Aside from that, we kind of have to wait and see. I think a lot of lessons were learned from 2009. If you look at how governments responded, they were very, very quick to jump down the "we're going to throw money at everything" kind of route. And there are some countries that are going to be much more seriously affected by that strategy than others. But I think the US, the UK, Germany, they're all in pretty healthy positions to be able to afford it. Yeah, I'm not super concerned, to be honest. Not super concerned. Actually, I think probably if you kind of look a little bit more long term about how really we're going to fund this, and the real tax rises and things that are going to come in the future, I think the most likely thing we're going to see actually is a carbon tax. And I think that that's something that you can position for by looking for companies that do have really good ESG policies already. So that kind of benefits my strategy, I think, in that I'm always looking at how responsible the companies I invest in are. So that's perhaps something to think about, I think, because it is going to be an expensive bill at the end of this for sure. And no one really knows how far you can push the whole debt to GDP ratio. So yeah, I guess that's just something that we need to kind of watch. I know that wasn't really a very good or compelling answer, but hopefully you got something out of it at least. I missed a question about Uipath, I think. Any thoughts on Uipath? I know loads of people are asking me about this. It's just not, realistically, it's not a company that I'm that interested in. So I haven't really looked into the valuation. I don't really know the product very well either. So I don't really have any color to add to it, to be honest. Uh, didn't know you streamed, hey. Hey, Berserker. I'm assuming you're Berserker from Trackmania, which is cool. Doge. Yes, Doge is a thing. Doge is going to be on eToro, I think. They were tweeting about it. See if I can find their tweet. I'm pretty sure they said like they just said like very interesting coming soon or something, or like much invest come soon or whatever. I don't know. They did some sort of a meme tweet, and yeah. So I think that's on the horizon for eToro. I don't know if they've added it yet. Actually, let's see if I can find it. Let's see if Doge is actually on there. No, but I think Dogecoin is going to be on eToro soon. So anyone who fancies a YOLO, be my guest. What do you think about cycling positions faster? Yeah, answered that. Same person asked it like 3 times, I think. Bullish on Ethereum. Yeah, I've already kind of talked about Ethereum. I do think Ethereum is, the competition is definitely heating up a bit for Ethereum, right? Like Polkadot and Cardano are both substantial threats, and Elrond as well. People are always tagging me on Twitter about Elrond, being like, "What about Elrond? What about?" Yeah, I know Elrond is a thing, and I also know that is also potentially a threat too. Just a bit further down the pecking order currently. The technology is good. Yeah, I mean, I'm bullish on it. At the end of the day, it's still their game to lose, right? They're still the market leaders. They still have by far the biggest developer community. They still have all of the major stable coins running on it. They have a lot of DeFi products running on it. They have a lot of the successful early dApps running on it. NFTs, like you name it. They've got it really, and if you look at what a lot of these other projects are doing, like Polkadot and Cardano, I think it says a lot that they're trying to make themselves as compatible with Ethereum as possible. Whether that's in terms of importing smart contracts and the programming language, or doing stuff cross chain. It's pretty obvious that Ethereum is going to be around for a while yet. Even if it does perform badly, it's just the big guy in the room, the elephant, I guess. What's your opinion of PIs who claim they can do better than you and challenge your stats? Your stats saying they made 50%, or what? Or what's not? Yeah, I mean, it depends really. Like, I understand it. I really understand people comparing. I mean, obviously they're going to compare with people like me and Wes and stuff, because we're the ones that are currently sat near the top with the most copiers and the most AUM. So obviously, to them, we could be seen as a benchmark that they want to measure themselves against. It makes sense. I mean, even I'm tempted to measure myself against other popular investors. Because it's a good thing to see what other people are doing, and what they're doing better than you, what they're doing worse than you, and kind of like look at that kind of stuff. But realistically, I don't think slinging mud against each other is a very sensible way of approaching things. Like there's enough AUM to go around. And I think really results will speak for themselves eventually. I mean, the other thing is that people oversimplify, right? Especially, I think some of the newer popular investors who don't really come from an investing background are guilty of this a lot. They'll kind of talk about their returns, but not talk about the risks involved in getting those returns, and not talk about the diversification of their portfolios, not talk about the events that their portfolio can really weather. I mean, even the risk score on eToro, it's not a real reflection of risk, right? The risk score is calculated based on, among other things, the I've forgotten the word. Essentially, the volatility. What's the word? I've forgotten it now. Completely forgotten it. But essentially, risk score really is measuring volatility and diversification more than anything else. And that doesn't ultimately reflect true risk, right? If you go and look at a company and it has, for example, I mean, some of the stuff that's been jumped on by Wall Street bets, right, would cause huge spikes in volatility, and potentially eToro's risk score would count that as a more volatile asset, even though there's no difference, in the underlying fundamentals of that company from one week to the next. Potentially, it would change simply because of volatility. So, those are the things that I think people need to kind of really think about more carefully is like, look at, I think drawdown stats are actually in many ways much more useful. Risk score is still definitely a useful thing. I'm not saying the risk score isn't useful, right? The risk score is a pretty good quick look at how risky someone is, but I think you need to look beyond that and really look at some of the stuff. There's people that will say that they've made 300% so far this year and that they're better than me, and then you go to their portfolio and it's like 30% in Ethereum, 20% in Binance Coin, and 20% in Bitcoin. And obviously that's not a fair comparison, right? So yeah, just think about the actual benchmarks for those people. If someone's trading mainly crypto, then you should compare them directly to those cryptos and see if they're outperforming. If someone's trading mainly growth stocks, compare them to the Nasdaq. If they're trading mainly more generic stocks, compare them with the S&P, et cetera, et cetera. Would you say that the copy block by eToro changed your strategy at all? No, not really. Even the cycling of positions is something that I've been doing for the past 2 years or so. If you go back, you'll notice that once I kind of realized how copying open trades works properly, and how people add funds and things like that. I adjusted my portfolio to always try and keep things relatively balanced a long time ago. So even that didn't really change anything. And besides that, I don't really think there is anything. I mean, you could argue that perhaps you're less incentivized since you can't get more copiers, and growing AUM is harder or whatever. But at the end of the day, like I've got my own money in my portfolio as well. And probably next year I'll add more to that. But yeah, like I'm still, I still want to outperform, right? I care about the reputation, to be honest, a lot. A lot of what motivates me is that I want to keep getting these 50% years. I want to be in a position where I can say that after 20 years of investing, I have a CAGR that is higher than any of the major funds, and this year is an important year for it as well because my AUM is starting to get much higher. So I'm starting to face more of the problems in deploying capital that some of those larger funds would face. So certainly on a much smaller scale, right? But certainly at least I'm comparable with more generic funds. Yeah, my goal is really to have a good reputation, and ideally, the dream is to be one of those investors that people talk about in 30 years' time, right? Like a Warren Buffett or a Ray Dalio or whatever, Peter Lynch, whoever. Insert your favorite investor here. I think that's really actually become more of my motivation at this point. Is to become someone that is recognized for that. Maybe it's a bit shallow. It's kind of like saying that I want to be famous, I guess. But it's kind of true. It would be really cool. eToro blocked Belgium users from using CFDs, calculated it to amount to 8.8% before the ban. How bad do you think it'll affect the portfolio performance not to copy you on CFDs? Yeah, I mean it could be a problem. Mainly, actually, I mean, obviously you're going to miss out on. Well, actually, thinking about it, you're not going to miss out on that much, really, because I trade crypto without leverage. I can't short it because shorting is banned in the UK. CFDs on crypto is banned in the UK, so I can't short crypto. I can only go long, and I only do that with 1x leverage, which means it's real underlying crypto. So that would still be copied. You'd still copy all of my stock trades because I never really use leverage on stocks, or very, very rarely. So really, the thing that's going to impact you the most is some of my hedging positions when I'm using SPX 500 and Nasdaq 100, which I do tend to use leverage on. So yeah, that could potentially be a problem. I mean, I try to use SQQQ when I can, but unfortunately, again, problems with liquidity tend to hit when I try and use that, because also, if I'm hedging, then normally a lot of other sensible popular investors are hedging as well, so there's not as much liquidity to go around, and I try opening a position for a few $1 million or something is obviously going to use up a lot of that. So yeah, it's harder for me to avoid that. So I guess that's possibly the thing to watch out for. The good news is that you would still be somewhat hedged anyway, and that you would be sitting in cash with those if you weren't copying those trades. So you are still kind of hedged a little bit, but obviously not as much. So and yeah, and then obviously short positions are CFDs. I don't short individual stocks that often, but I do it sometimes. So yeah, you would miss out on some of those as well. But you could argue that those are inherently more risky trades with lower risk to reward as well. So I don't think it's something you need to be too concerned about if you're copying me. But it's definitely something you should consider when you're choosing who to copy, because other traders may be different. Like a long short portfolio specifically would be much more problematic potentially. Peloton doesn't seem to be as popular as in Asia, though. Yeah, that's because they haven't started selling in Asia yet. Basically, or most regions. In fact, really, they're essentially it's just the UK, Oceania, and the US really are their major markets for Peloton. So they've still got so much growth to go through, so many more markets to expand into. I see that as a bullish thing, not a bearish thing. How much time do you spend working? It's hard to say because uh, your brain doesn't stop thinking about stuff. So it depends how you define work, right? Like I'll be out for a walk and I'll be listening to an audiobook, like I was a week or so ago, actually. Out listening to an audiobook about economics, and there's still stuff that's obviously relevant to trading and stuff, and you're still learning things that are relevant to the job, I guess. So does that count as work? I don't know. If you're using a product and then you start thinking, and this happened the other week. I was thinking about cycling because the weather's nice, and I saw someone on a bike, and I was thinking about cycling, and I was thinking about I'd recently been watching videos about kind of making walkable and cyclable cities, and I was thinking about cycling, and I was looking up all of the different cycling companies, looking at if they're publicly traded, who owns them, how much of the company, what percentage of revenue comes from cycling stuff, who makes the tires, all of that kind of stuff. And part of that was just that I was interested in it. As part of it, I guess you could define as work. I don't know. It's a very kind of grey area, but a lot of time, I think, actually, in reality, like my brain doesn't stop thinking about this stuff. You never really stop thinking about it because it's just interesting to me. If I have downtime, I'll go and turn Bloomberg TV on and watch a bit of Bloomberg. If I'm reading stuff, I mean, I don't read, but if I listen to audiobooks, they're all based around psychology or economics or investing, really. So yeah, I guess even a lot of my free time I spend kind of looking at this kind of stuff. Even things like Formula One. I watch Formula One and I'm looking at all the sponsors on the cars and wondering who the companies are. So yeah, it's hard to say how much time I spend working. Quite a lot. I don't really ever take for like full days off. Even on my days off, I'm still looking at the markets and making sure everything's going okay. Do you have the eToro card? No, I do not. The fabled eToro card that I think has been over a year since they first announced it. So I would love to get my hands on one. It would be cool. What are your thoughts on Link? Would you be comfortable holding for the long term? Probably not for the long term, but I do think that it is a very strong crypto. Probably their tokenomics and the fact that they're essentially the people running the crypto, the founders, are kind of selling all the time doesn't help. Like the tokenomics of it aren't that strong, but the actual utility of it is really strong. So read into that what you will. I do have a small position on it on eToro, and I do hold a bit personally outside of eToro as well. So yeah, I like Link, but still a very small part of the portfolio. Recycling positions is more like cycling positions. So basically, closing a position and opening it again. So the purpose for that can either be to take out the profit or the loss and kind of resync it. So, for example, I always want everything to be at least 0.5% of my portfolio. So if I get drawn down by 30%, but I'm still bullish on the stock, then maybe I'll close the position and then open it again, so that I've got more money invested so that it's worth more than 0.5% of my portfolio, so that it's still being copied correctly by anyone who's adding funds or doing whatever. That's not so much of an issue these days. Could be to take profit out, could be simply because I believe in a company long term, but if people are adding funds, then and I'm holding a position for 12 months, they're going to have to wait 12 months before that position gets copied in their new added funds. So generally, every like 2 to 3 months, I will try and go through and replace some old trades. And you'll see me doing this on like a daily basis, pretty much. Looks like you were answered by Slug and a Rug when you asked that anyway. But I think it's useful for me to answer it in this for anyone else who's interested. What is your current longest investment you have kept rolling? So obviously, I just kind of explained cycling positions. I think probably it's AMD now. Well, actually, no, it'd be Microsoft, I think. I've essentially been investing in Microsoft since my first year that I started investing, in 2011, 2010, whenever it was, 2010, I think, or early 2011. Yeah, Microsoft was one of the first things I traded, and I've been in and out of it ever since. Nvidia is up there as well. I've been in and out of them since then. In terms of something really like sizable, though, I mean, I've been very committed behind AMD since late 2016. So nice hat you have on the picture you posted on Twitter today. Yeah, that's a picture of me back in the day when I was doing esports. It's called the TAM. It's designed to hold all your dreadlocks in. So I used to have dreadlocks. Um, You said you were studying for trading exams required by eToro. Did you get them, and what will change when you get them? In terms of what will change, not that much really. I believe eventually eToro will make it like compulsory for moving up tiers to have certain set of qualifications. But at the moment, that's not the case. So maybe that'll come in next year or something. I'm not completely sure. Um, and I'm not sure if they're going to like keep adding to that. So maybe we'll have to go higher and higher. Studying is going slowly. I'm really atrociously bad at focusing on anything for more than a few minutes. So reading just doesn't come naturally to me. I don't like reading. I like to consume through like audio visual information, and that's just not an option, unfortunately, with what I'm studying. So, yeah, it's going slowly, but I mean, the good news is that I knew most of. So there's 2 exams I've got to do, and for the first one, I basically am at like a pass level already. Like when as soon as I looked at it and did a mock exam, I was basically at a pass level. So really, it's just a case of like kind of jogging my memory on a few things that I don't pay as much attention to or whatever. The second one is much more like regulatory focused, and much more of like the regulatory environment of like understanding the FCA and their role and what they do and stuff much more. So that's going to be a bit harder, and I haven't really started studying for that one yet. But I hopefully I should. My goal is to pass the first one probably in about 1 to 2 months from now, and then the second one I think will take a bit longer. But really, the challenge is finding time between like earnings and motivating myself to actually start reading, and to stay focused on reading for long enough to learn the bits that I don't know. So yeah, it's a bit challenging, but I think that it's a really sensible decision by eToro. Actually, it makes a lot of sense. I'm investing to have more money to invest into my own business. That's really cool. Yeah, that's cool. Why not? What's your view on Tesla? what is my view on Tesla? That's that's kind of a good question. I actually haven't really thought that much about Tesla recently. I mean, I don't like them at the moment and won't trade them at the moment because I think they are slightly beyond that kind of grey area of where I think a company moves to becoming unethical in how they treat their workers, in how Elon Musk acts online um, with his promotion of Dogecoin and stuff. I think it's pretty irresponsible, to be honest. I know there's going to be a lot of Tesla fanboys and Elon fanboys that are hating on me for this, but yeah, I think Elon's actually a bit of a dick, and him being a bit of a dick is has in the past and is currently to some extent a deciding factor on whether or not I'm willing to invest in Tesla. I think they're still overvalued, honestly. Like if I stop and I sit down and I look at Ford or VW or GM or Hyundai, Hyundai doing really well. If I look at that, or Neo even, if I look at those companies and I compare them to Tesla, I think those companies win out every time in my head of what I'm more comfortable investing in terms of the risk to reward. I think the hype around autonomous driving is a bit too much. I fell into that hype a few times in the past, thinking that it was closer than it really was. And I think that again, actually, that's the case now. I think people are thinking that we're way closer to autonomous vehicles than we really are, to be honest. Would you buy Bitcoin at these prices? Yes, I probably would. Thoughts on Link? Already answered. Can you explain Flow and why you like it? Yeah, I can explain Flow. Flow is a cryptocurrency that was created by the person who created the ERC 721 standard. Was one of the founders. ERC 721 is essentially the first NFT token based on Ethereum. That's what the E stands for in ERC. So yeah, it's got a good founder. It's basically a protocol designed specifically for running NFTs on top of. So that's the point of it. It's meant to be, it's designed for that. It doesn't have any extra stuff that would potentially slow it down or make it worse. It's got the backing of some really, really good VCs like Andreessen Horowitz, for example. I actually can't think of the others off the top of my head. It's got partnerships with incredible brands, including obviously NBA with NBA Top Shots, which is the thing they're most known for now, but also with MotoGP, with MMA, whatever it's called, forgotten the name of it. With Major League Baseball, I believe they're partnered with. I think they're partnered with Warner Music. Off the top of my head, I'm trying to remember now, but yeah, there's quite a few companies that they're partnered with, and they have been deploying real good, usable products at a rate that is, unparalleled, really, in the NFT space, and with really, really, really big brands. So yeah, I think I'm super bullish on it. I think if you actually look at the concept of what they've done with MotoGP and what they've done with NBA, if you are a fan of those sports, I can totally see people collecting them. If they did it for F1, I would probably collect them, to be honest. I think it's really cool and really fun. I mean, it depends on the price, obviously, right? I'm not going to spend like millions on a fake thing, but maybe £100 or something. Like for me, that's relatively disposable income and would be fun, I think. So yeah, that's kind of why I like them. I think their weakness is really with the tokenomics. That's where their biggest weakness lies, I think. But I like the product. I like the project. I like the founders. I like the investors. I like the partners. I think it's got a good future. Man, I'm going to be so far behind. Here I was, hilariously, today, before the stream, I spoke to Leanne, my girlfriend. I spoke to her in the other room, and I was like, I don't know how many people are going to really actually be here today, so maybe it'll be quite a short stream. I don't know how many questions I'm going to get. But I'm looking at chat, and I'm looking at the viewer count, and I have a feeling that I might be here quite a while. Yeah, I'm just gonna quickly check eToro before I keep going. I mean, obviously I have it open, right? But I'm just kind of checking to see where the markets are going. If there's anything of concern, and there's not really. I mean, the market is down. It's a red day. I'm streaming, of course. It's a red day. The Ford news was pretty devastating, to be honest. Overstock had fantastic start of the day though, so that's nice. What's your thoughts on bed and breakfasts? I think air bed and breakfasts are better, which is why I own Airbnb. Do you think people care if a service is decentralized or not? Not that many, but I think there is room for people to care. I think it is a matter of time before we see another kind of reminder of what's happened with the likes of Mt. Gox and things that makes people much more wary. And I think we are still in an environment where governments are a bit sketchy on a lot of things, and in many ways are implementing policies that perhaps are a little bit unfair or short-sighted because they don't really understand the technology fully. So I think that there is definitely a place for decentralized products, and I think really the biggest appeal of decentralized products isn't the fact that it's decentralized and that nobody controls it. The biggest draw to it actually is that it should be cheaper. And I actually think one of the best examples of this is a cryptocurrency called Siacoin. So Siacoin basically is decentralized cloud storage, and the cost for storing documents, for example, like you would on Google Drive or OneDrive or iCloud or whatever, the cost compared to Google is 10 times cheaper. And it has full redundancy. It has its own Google Doc style applications. Obviously, nowhere near as powerful yet, but you can literally work on documents that are on the cloud. You can live stream video across it. You can you can do all sorts of stuff. And it's actually a pretty old project that's running on Ethereum, and it's 10x cheaper, and it's 10x cheaper because of the fact that it is maybe perhaps not as much as it could be, but it is certainly very decentralized compared to its competitors, and that's why it's so much cheaper. Because there isn't a company in the middle that's taking a margin of 20 or 30% or whatever it is, and so that helps dramatically. So yeah, I think that really is why DeFi products will ultimately be successful, is because they'll be cheapest. Yeah. So glad I put in a few hundred when the copy block announcement came about, but since then I've much more, and I'm really enjoying your insight and detail. Awesome, thanks. What do you think about Cardano and the news from Ethiopia? I mean, it's a really cool project, actually, the Ethiopia thing. To clue everyone in, basically they've partnered with Ethiopia to make a blockchain ID system, I think for students, and it will probably be the biggest ID system run on the blockchain anywhere in the world currently. So yeah, I mean, it's a really cool project. I think perhaps if people think that it's going to send Cardano to the moon, then maybe they're a bit delusional. There's all sorts of cool projects that are going around. Like 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I think it was Sweden that was working with NEM blockchain, if I remember right, to do land registry via the blockchain. And deeds for land and stuff. So, like there's been these kind of huge contracts and test projects done around the world for some time now. And yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean that your token is going to do well as a result, but they're really, really, really good proof of concepts. And there are some of those that have been working for several years now that have kind of proven themselves and are now kind of moving into even bigger proof of concepts. So yeah, it's good news. Corsair stocks soon. Corsair stocks soon. Feels bad, man. Maybe please go public, Corsair. What? Corsair is public. I'm extremely confused about that. I literally own Corsair stock. It's public. CRSR is the ticker. Yeah, not sure what you really meant by that comment. Do you know some people that copy you with 100%? I don't, but they're constantly making themselves known in my comment section on eToro. So I'm sure you can find some if you dig around. Or join the Discord if you want. You can type !Discord, then it will provide the link to join my Discord. Don't all spam Discord at the same time, please. the command, I mean. Holding some XRP, not sure if to sell now while I'm still in profit. Still had a $10 price in my mind. I'm not sure what to say about that. Let's very quickly just calculate how much it would be worth if there was a $10 price on XRP. So XRP at the moment, market cap is 63 billion. So yeah, that's 1.4. So I guess multiply it by roughly 8. So yeah, I mean that's a lot. What is 63 times 8? Quite a lot, I think. Yeah, that's that's a cool $504 billion. $billion. That's a lot. I mean, I guess it's possible. It is possible, but yeah, I wouldn't expect it soon. Yeah, that's a lot. Sorry. Yeah, no, $10. It depends how long you want to wait, really, and also how much you believe in them really achieving anything. I mean, I personally believe that XRP is one of the cryptos that has had a lot of those proof of concepts and then has never really scaled up from them, which to me suggests that those proof of concepts haven't actually gone that well. I mean, if you look at the proof of concepts they have done, a lot of the most successful ones didn't actually use the XRP token. So, you know, I'm not sure. So I like the whole SEC situation as well. I feel like Ripple, the company, handled that very, very poorly. I don't understand why you wouldn't have just settled with the SEC. The amount of money they would have wanted would have been pretty trivial compared to the amount of money that Ripple has available. If you look at EOS, you look at Telegram, I think it was, there's plenty of other projects that have settled with the SEC before it got to this point. And it would have saved them a lot of face. It would have saved their investors a lot of money in the short to medium term during that big drop. I mean, really, the only reason it's come back is because it was just so low compared to its previous highs that I think people just wanted to take a gamble on it, to be honest. So, yeah, $10 is possible, but is it likely in the next year or so? I don't think so. Copying copy is generally a bad idea. What do you think a lot? Yeah, that is probably true. Any thought about the space industry? Just as it's a rapidly growing industry. Do you think there are any opportunities? Yeah, I think the opportunities in the space industry are actually with the legacy companies. I think Lockheed Martin is a good bet. They provide all sorts of stuff to the space industry and will obviously be playing a big role in it in the future. Obviously, I'm not going to trade them because I think that they're a pretty questionable company generally in terms of ethics. You could look at Boeing and Airbus as well. Obviously, Rolls-Royce. All of those companies were providing a lot of parts to the aerospace industry. and potentially even doing stuff on their own in the future. Who knows? So yeah, they're potential good bets that I think are undervalued. I think the stuff like Virgin Galactic and stuff like that are probably a bit overvalued and highly speculative. Whereas I think with those other companies, you still get exposure to it, but you get a slightly safer company to invest in overall as well. Like you know that you're pretty unlikely to lose all your money, Whereas I think something like Virgin Galactic, for example, could just go under at any moment. I mean, it's obviously not like any moment, right? But the risk is substantially higher. And potentially they might not end up being the company really which is making the most money out of the industry anyway. So that's kind of what I think about the space industry. What do you think about gold and silver for the rest of 2021? Well, I've kind of explained before that I'm actually pretty bearish on the precious metals, the metals that act as a store of value, because I think that the store of value attribute is being kind of sucked out of them by cryptocurrencies. Whether you like it or not, you can be as bullish as you want on gold and on silver, but at the end of the day, the majority of millennials and younger investors, Gen Z, are going to disagree with you over if it's better to put money in gold or money in Bitcoin. So yeah, I see a massive transfer of wealth going out of both of those and into cryptocurrencies over the next decade. So for that reason, I'm pretty bearish on both of them. But as actual like metals, I think we're seeing with the demand for things like cobalt and copper and zinc and stuff like all of these are facing a lot more demand. Partially because of EVs and semiconductor industry and things like that, but just generally, I think they're in high demand. So I think commodity markets for some of those metals are pretty interesting. But for gold and silver, I'm not a big fan. But I'm again they're not things I really trade that often. I don't pay too much attention to them. They're not markets I really follow. So take my opinion with a grain of salt. What do you think of Ford's position today? A big gap down, sitting somewhere at 100 moving average support. Really unfortunate for Ford. I think the real tragedy here is that Ford had a fantastic quarter, and I think they are being recognised for having fantastic products. I wrote a long post on eToro about Ford. I could have written a lot more and talked about, their deals with VW, their deal with Rivian, and things like that. But I didn't want to kind of drone on forever. I think there's a lot of things going in Ford's favor. Their autonomous vehicle stuff as well. There's a lot of things that I think are really bullish for Ford. But yeah, they got hit by the semiconductor thing, and it's just kind of a bit of a tragedy, really. It'll be interesting to see as more car makers report how many of them are affected and how badly they are affected in comparison. It does feel like perhaps Ford were one of the companies that got caught out a bit by this more than other companies. So yeah, not great. But again, like when you actually kind of take a step back and you look at the big picture, the semiconductor shortage is going to be a short-term problem, not a long-term problem. And the actual products that they're making and the trajectory that they're on and the progress that they've made over the past probably 2 years, I would say, is really substantial. So I really like Ford. Still really bullish on them. I think this is a pretty good buying opportunity, to be honest, for anyone that doesn't have any. Again, obviously, do your own research and due diligence. I'm not a financial advisor. What is your opinion on the crypto uses too much power issue? Yeah, so I'm actually, I'm a little bit annoyed actually, because my argument on this that I've been saying for about the past 5 years is actually kind of hitting mainstream now. It was used by Elon, it was used by Chamath, it was used by Michael Saylor. Yeah, so it's been rolled out actually by a lot of the kind of celebrities of the crypto space over the past like 3 months or so, especially as it's kind of become a hot topic again. Essentially, the argument is pretty simple, right? It goes like this: to mine cryptocurrencies, which is what all this power is being spent on, basically. To mine cryptocurrencies, you need power. Um, and the cheaper your power is, the more profit you'll make because power is, along with hardware, the biggest cost you will have in mining cryptocurrencies. So if you can save money on power or you can save money on your hardware, then you're going to be much more profitable at mining. And so what happens is that people who want to mine at scale, so businesses and companies that are dedicated to mining, will look for the cheapest electricity they can find. The cheapest electricity is renewable electricity. It is either from a nuclear power station where they have too much power and it's not all being used. It can be from wind and solar, where again excess power is being put to waste. It can actually even be from coal, when coal is being burned, and again they're just not using all of the power because a lot of those things take time to ramp up and ramp down. So you're overproducing for the market when the market doesn't need it potentially. Like nobody's turning their solar panels off in the middle of the day, even though the middle of the day is the point at which most people aren't using it, right? So for a solar company, selling to a miner is a great thing because they run out of people to sell to in the middle of the day, except miners. Miners will still turn up in the middle of the day and ask for their power to use it. So essentially, it kind of works in many ways a bit like a battery or kind of like arbitrage. They are taking waste energy, energy that otherwise would be wasted, and they are using it to mine. Um, there's a research paper that was put out by Cambridge. They've done it, I think, 3 years in a row now. At Cambridge University about crypto, and they look at this issue, and I think it's 72% of miners use renewables as part of their energy mix, and something like 20% or 20 to 30% uh, use renewables exclusively. In China, people always cite China and say most mining's done in China. China's really dirty. China is producing more solar than any other country in the world by a huge margin, like 10x more. It's a ridiculous number. A lot of their power comes from hydro. Hydro is, I think, the third biggest source of power in China. And you can argue that there are environmental effects of that for sure, but carbon impact not so much. And yeah, as the Chinese grid, I think something like 33% of the Chinese grid is actually renewable already. So again, people always paint China like it's really, really bad and it's all coal, but that's just not true. They have a good amount of nuclear power and they have an awful lot of renewable there now, and it's scaling rapidly, much faster than well, any other major country really, to be honest. So yeah, essentially that's the argument for it, and of course the thing is that if you as someone who's building a big solar farm or wind farm or whatever know that there is going to be demand for the power that you generate, then it makes it much easier to get your projects funded, and it's your profits are obviously going to be much higher because you're selling that energy, you're selling all of that energy. And so that's where miners really fit in. They're going around the world, they're finding the cheapest power and the waste power. In some cases, they're taking the power that they're being paid to consume because there's too much of it, and they're putting it into something useful, which is protecting the Bitcoin network. So that's my opinion on it. Of it, is it as effective as it as cost effective and as green as it could be? Obviously not. Is it green compared to current financial systems? Actually, yes, it is. Again, when you think about it, with if you think about what it takes to even run, let's say, a central bank for a medium-sized country, and all of the banking infrastructure surrounding it, and the local stock market of that country, for example, all of which could theoretically be done with Bitcoin using things like Lightning Network. If you look at all of those things and the cost in terms of carbon of people driving to their offices and going to work and everything surrounding it, it's far, far, far better to be using something like Bitcoin than systems like that. There will obviously still be a big carbon footprint associated with it. And as I said, it's not as green as it could be, but it is not like this devil that everyone's pointing out to be. And actually, really, this is kind of just shifting. I honestly, it wouldn't surprise me to find out that like fossil fuel companies or something are kind of pushing this agenda, or like plastic companies or something like that, or Nestle with their water, because like this is like a kind of look over here, this thing's really bad kind of situation. When in reality, yeah, it's not great, it's not perfect, but plastic pollution, overfishing, taking water from deep underground, oil, coal. All of these things are far, far worse for the environment flying than Bitcoin mining by a really, really long way. So yeah, I think it's kind of just a case of diverting people's attention, to be honest. And yeah, I don't buy the argument that we should all be really concerned about it at all. That's my opinion on it. End rant. So someone should probably clip that, like that whole rant. I didn't say it as eloquently as Michael Saylor did, though. So if you wanna see someone explain that view well, then I recommend you watch Michael Saylor's debate against who was it? The gold guy. You can find it on YouTube. Just search Michael Saylor versus gold debate, and I'm sure you'll find it. It's really worth watching, actually, for Bitcoin against gold. Yeah, I was kind of lost where I was now. That was quite a lengthy rant. As you can tell, one of the things I'm more passionate about, I guess, because that argument gets rolled out all the time. People ask me it all the time as well. So, does buying a stock make a difference in the real world? For example, do I make a difference if I buy Canadian Solar instead of ExxonMobil? Well, it depends how much money you're buying it with. Yeah, you will make a difference. How big the difference will be is debatable. But ultimately, the share price gives companies a lot of freedom. If the share price is riding high, then it means that, if the company is doing well and the company looks attractive and there's lots of demand to buy the stock, then it gives companies options in terms of things like raising capital, for example. So for a solar company, if they're doing really well and they want to expand into a new territory or a new product that's going to cost lots and lots of money, they can go to some of the bond markets, for example, and issue out some bonds and get a favorable rate because of the fact that their share price is doing well. And as the company is seen as doing well, or they could issue shares, for example. And likewise, kind of on the flip side of that, if there's no demand for something like ExxonMobil, then their share price gets lower. The returns for their investors are lower. They have to increase their dividends more to try and make up for that potentially, which would cost them more money. Or perhaps they would have to do larger share buybacks as well, because if there's less demand for the stock, then less people willing to hold the stock, then that's obviously bad news for them. So yeah, it does make a real impact. How big it is, yeah, it's kind of hard to measure, really, I guess. But certainly, I mean, impact investing is like a real thing, and ESG investing is massively on the rise. So I actually expect it to become a bigger thing. I mean, even look at GameStop and what's going on with GameStop, and everyone utilizing their voting rights. On GameStop, you can see things like that happening. Right, there are attempts to take over companies by just acquiring a lot of shares and getting yourself essentially a seat on the board, or even just actually taking it over. So yeah, it definitely makes a difference. Are you aware of the crazy APRs for staking cake on yield farms, such as Pancake Bunny? If so, what do you think? I don't really look at actually the really insane DeFi stuff. I prefer using the centralized stuff actually at the moment. I think it's just easier mainly. It's mainly a convenience thing. So I'm a big fan of BlockFi and just staking stuff on there. I stake some stuff on Kraken. I stake a few things in like Exodus wallets and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm I get it, and I think it's really cool the stuff that you can do with things like Pancake Swap. But I wouldn't really recommend it to people because I just think that DeFi is actually really pretty technical and difficult to use still. It reminds me of what Bitcoin was like in the early days. It's a lot of effort. There's a lot that can go wrong, and you can potentially lose money or whatever. So I prefer to stick to the centralized stuff in those kind of situations, actually, for the time being, at least. Uh, what are you drinking? I'm drinking a Monster because I'm still addicted to them. I have cut down my fizzy drink soda intake quite substantially, but I do still really like Monster. I should probably buy their stock at some point. I'm pretty sure I'm keeping them afloat. Uh, came from the train driving. Got sound, not investment advice. Google has had a tremendous growth year. What's your opinion on the stock? Yeah, it's interesting. I think Google, in hindsight, actually, I'm kind of kicking myself for missing the Google trade a little bit because I saw the Google trade the other way around when the pandemic kicked in. Right, they get an awful lot of their revenue from advertising, through advertising, through their search engine, and through YouTube. Um, and really, it was YouTube that impressed in the most recent earnings. And I think is the biggest kind of bull case. I mean, obviously the cloud stuff is still doing fantastic as well, but really, I think it's the ad revenue that's really kind of the highlight for me. I think in Google at the moment, and I do think actually that there's a lot of other areas where Google's kind of losing out. I think they're losing out on the gaming market. I think their live gaming service was a massive flop, Stadia. And I'm surprised they haven't cancelled it yet. Yeah, so I don't know. Yeah, I'm a bit gutted that I missed the trend because obviously advertising has been picking up massively over the past probably 5-6 months, especially. But even really all the way back to when lockdown really kind of went into full force, it's been ramping up since then. So yeah, a bit of a missed opportunity. Will I be investing in it? I don't know really. It's not really a company that actually interests me all that much. It doesn't capture my attention even in the same way as something like Microsoft, for example. I'm just not quite as big of a fan. I'm not quite as like I don't have the same level of conviction. It's hard to see more growth for products like YouTube because it is obviously so widespread now. Um, so yeah, I struggle a bit with Google. I can understand people investing in them. I do think that they're a solid pick. Obviously, they've proven that this year, this past year even. But for me, I just prefer Microsoft. I feel safer in Microsoft. I feel more like I understand the business in Microsoft, and I feel like Microsoft is going to have a pretty similar trajectory, if not better, than Google. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that. Um, let's see. Full screen cam. Full screen cam is all I need in my life. Uh, did you implement any strats for your stocks for day and swing trading? Do you just position trade based off fundamentals? Yeah, so it's mainly based off fundamentals, really. So, like, if there's a news event that I think has pushed the price too far in one of the stocks I trade, then that's when I get tempted into day trades and swing trades more. Trying to think if there's a good example of that recently. I'm pretty sure there is. Did I even do one today? Possibly. I mean, Peloton is an example of that. I think Peloton at the moment, if you want to do a swing trade on Peloton, you just buy it now and sell it when it's up by like another 5 or 6% in a couple of weeks. When it's, unless the market tanks is in my opinion pretty inevitable. Like clearly the news about the trend has gone too far and pushed it far further than it should have. Some other examples of day trades. Actually, I don't have that many recently, really, looking at it. I mean, I guess PayPal was kind of one of them with the Bitcoin stuff. Yeah, actually, I don't have that many examples of good day trades recently. So, yeah, but that's generally how I approach it. I'm not like looking at charts all the time and thinking, oh, I'm going to day trade this thing. I only day trade stuff that that I really understand the fundamentals of. So the stuff that's on my watch list that I'm looking at already. So, yeah. What do you think of Shopify? They had another great quarter. I do think Shopify is going to reach the limits of growth at some point soon. But I still like them. They're still a part of my portfolio. I'm still drawn down on them, unfortunately. I have a friend who's incredibly bullish on Shopify. It's his favorite stock by far. But for me, a bit like the situation with Google, I think it is hard when you reach a certain scale to envision further growth because you think surely the market is getting saturated now or oversaturated even. How much more money can they really make from this? And I think Shopify does kind of fall into that category a bit, but I've learned to ignore that feeling somewhat. And this is actually kind of something you have to learn with investing generally, right? Is that things keep growing beyond where you think they're going to grow, and it's very hard for human beings to really to understand growth just generally. I mean, even if you look at like the pandemic, right? Exponential growth is just something that's very very difficult to comprehend for most people, because you go up 10x and then you go up 10x again, and you think, well, there's no way it's going to 10x another time, and then inevitably it can and does eventually do that. So yeah, you kind of have to ignore that a little bit. But yeah, I think the company's decent. I still like the product. I like that it's kind of almost an anti-Amazon in some ways, in that it's there for individual sellers much more, and isn't trying to totally rip them off. But yeah, it does feel like it's getting more saturated. It's a smaller position in my portfolio. I haven't actually listened to the earnings call yet either, so forgive me for not kind of adding any more like detail on it. Does it cost a lot every time you cycle a position with spread fees? Not particularly. You're talking like 0.5% roughly on average, sometimes less, sometimes more. But like, the performance that you see for the past 2 years has been me cycling at that exact same rate. So I still managed to get the returns I did despite those spreads. Yeah, it's a bit more painful on cryptocurrencies. So I don't, I try and be a bit more careful about when I do it and try and actually time it more on cryptocurrencies. But yeah, it's for stocks, it's not really something that I would be concerned about. Trying to add funds to your copy, but doesn't sync in normally. How many days should it take to sync in? Yeah, roughly 3 months for roughly 100% to be fully invested. But again, rough numbers. It's impossible really to put a real number on it. But every day I am opening and closing trades almost every day. So you will be more and more synced over time. Does this mean you don't travel since COVID? Yeah, I've not really been anywhere. I've not been anything more than like 30 miles from my house at any point in the past year. I don't think. So yeah, no, I don't. COVID is ridiculous. Just let it out and let people get infected. You literally have more chance of dying from driving your car once a year. Don't think that's true. I'm relatively sure. I mean, you know what? I'm curious now, so I'm going to Google it. Let's see. I'm going to Google global car deaths per year, and I'm relatively confident that it's going to be lower than the number of deaths that COVID has caused so far globally. And that, by the way, is despite all of the lockdown measures. Despite all of the lockdown measures. If we had zero lockdown measures and we just let the NHS in the UK and the other hospital services globally just become overrun everywhere, then obviously it would be far, far worse. Not to mention that the mutation rate for the virus would also increase because it's spreading more, which means that there's more chance potentially of getting something worse that has worse effects that can kill us off faster potentially. So yeah, I mean, I don't buy it, but just out of curiosity, I'm going to try and find what it is globally. Okay, yeah, so it's nowhere near. So the data here is a bit old. From 2016, there were 1.35 million deaths from car accidents globally, and that was in 2016. So obviously you can extrapolate that a bit higher, but yeah, it's nowhere near what COVID is. So yeah. Yeah, to put it pretty simply, I disagree. You'll be on Google, already answered that. IOTA got big. Where do you think IOTA is going to be in the near future? I don't really look at it too much, to be honest. I haven't really looked at IOTA in the past year or so. I know they've still got a lot of big partnerships, but there's really nothing I can add. It sounds like you know more about it than I do, to be honest, at this point. There's a good old debate going on in the in the chat about COVID. It seems. Keep it friendly. I'll try to. You are currently opening positions with $600, 0.54% equity of your portfolio. Asking because of that small amount. Want to be sure my money will be invested and not just lying on a pillow. Yeah. And when my portfolio value approaches 120,000 in my portfolio, which mean those positions are 0.5%, that's when I then ratchet it up another level. So I would move them from being $600 up to $700. So then it would be up to like 0.58% or something from that point forward. So yeah, I always try and gear it that way. So yeah, basically you just need to make sure that you've got at least $600 copying me. That even gives you a little bit of a margin of safety as well for drawdowns and stuff. Yeah, so that's the way to do it. When can we copy you? I answered that earlier. I don't know. It's not on the horizon in the future, so plan accordingly. Lots of debate. It's going to be very enjoyable for people on YouTube reading the debate on COVID in the sidebar while I'm talking. What do you expect from the halving of Ethereum? Not much, actually. I don't even know when the halving of Ethereum is actually, thinking about it. Generally it's the Bitcoin halving that really kind of moves the markets because obviously everything's in a trading pair against it. Yeah, I don't really remember there being that much of a big thing about it last time. Yeah, I can't seem to find it very easily. So yeah, I guess something I need to actually look into again and just double check when that is. Sorry, I didn't add anything to that either. Do you have positions of companies on the Hong Kong exchange? Currently, I don't think I have any, actually. I think I removed all exposure to Hong Kong and China. Yeah, I currently have none. But I did have Tencent, I did have Alibaba, and I did have Zini Solar as well. Those were the ones that I had recently. But yeah, I don't have them at the moment. I think it was becoming clear to me that I was kind of fighting the market a bit too much on it. In my head, China's generally a bit undervalued, and the situation with kind of crackdown on big monopolies and stuff is, clearly going to be somewhere near its peak. So that was kind of my opinion, but at the end of the day, that's been my opinion for 3 months. The market continued to sink really during that time, and I wasn't really seeing the kind of returns that I was hoping for. So I got out. I mean, part of the reason I was in Tencent was because of their exposure to things like Epic Games. So I replaced them with Sony because I was bullish on Sony anyway. I've traded Sony a lot. So basically replaced Tencent with Sony for a very similar kind of exposure in terms of like what they do as a company, music, movies, games, and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I replaced them with Sony. I'm pretty happy. Pretty happy with that decision. Even though Sony is drawn down at the moment, I think they're in a better position than Tencent, and they still offer a reasonable amount of diversification in terms of like geography. You're going to YOLO into Doge. No, I'm not going to YOLO into Doge with your money. Don't worry. I mean, I did actually do a trade on Dogecoin when Elon was tweeting about it. I did a day trade a couple of months ago, maybe. Like the first real pump, and I made really good money from that day trade in a very short period of time. But I would probably not be doing that with everyone else's money on here. Opinion on Tron, Disney. Disney, I think, are going to be hit harder by the kind of COVID passports and things like that. That's why I have a position in Six Flags. They do much more regional parks, much more local parks. So they're going to attract local tourism much more. I think they're going to see a much bigger boom in attendance than the likes of Disney, and better profits on the park side of things, at least. In terms of movies and stuff, yeah, maybe Disney would be a good investment for that side of things. I think Disney Plus is actually, having used it for a bit, I kind of switched a bit bearish on it. I think that Disney Plus is actually pretty awful. If I'm being completely honest, the discoverability is awful. The selection of stuff on there is awful. Unless you have kids, I don't know why you're paying for it. Really, like, there's just not enough on there. There's not enough content on there. The software needs a lot of work in terms of like recommendations and things like that. It just doesn't compare. Like, I don't know why you'd buy that instead of Netflix, to be honest, unless you were bullish on the rest of the company. And as I said, I think for the park side of things, you're going to find better value by investing in either SeaWorld, which I don't do because of Wales, obviously, or in Cedar Point. Cedar Resorts, whatever they call themselves, Fun is their ticker, or in Six Flags. Any of those three, I think, are going to be slightly better options in terms of the park exposure. And just so, yeah, that's why I've gone for them. So I have some Six Flags in my portfolio. I could be wrong. I could be wrong on Disney. I mean, I've kind of been like slightly mistimed with Disney over the past year or so. Like, I've been bullish on them at the right time to be bullish of them, but I've taken profits too early in a couple of situations, and I've kind of underestimated the pull they have. I understand that, if you're parents, then yeah, Disney Plus is still pretty good option, but I just don't think it's as compelling as people think. So I got rid of my Disney recently. Tron, yeah, I met Justin Sun a long time ago. Nice guy, means well. Cryptocurrency, not great. That's That's pretty much it. That's my opinion on it. Yeah, not great. Yeah, it has DeFi. Yeah, it's okay in terms of building stuff on it. It's not bad. It's not good either. Um, it's not as good as Polkadot. It's probably not as good as Cardano. It's definitely not as good as Ethereum. In terms of as an investment, I mean, like there's just way too much risk there. I think the community is less mature. I think the kind of deals and partnerships and things that they've done in the past have been much less mature, much more kind of borderline scam kind of stuff. Yeah, I wouldn't be throwing lots of money into it. Elrond as well, I think it's a better pick than that. Um, uh, Personally hate comparing, rather compare with someone with similar strategy and risk. Yep. Um, Elrond, eGold. That's who you were talking about. Yeah, eGold. Correct. Sorry, I realised you probably posted that like half an hour ago, and it's taken me this long to get to it. But yeah, that's what I was talking about. What other popular investors do you believe are good at covering areas of the market that you do not cover? Ooh, that's a tough question actually. So I would say you know, look for someone who deals in commodities for sure. Look for someone that's benchmarks. I mean, really, the easy way of doing it is looking at people and asking them what their benchmarks are, or trying to find out what their real benchmarks are. And looking at their risk profile and stuff as well, and even just looking through their portfolio and seeing how similar it is. I am definitely leaning towards growth, but I'm not afraid of trading some of the more traditional companies because I still look at like the macros of the economy and of global trends. But I think finding a volatility-based trader would be a good option. So maybe someone that's trading the VIX or some of the stuff like that, or the indices. Finding people who are focused on specifically more on the Asian markets. I do trade a few things in Asia, but really nowhere near as much as I could or should because I'm just not as familiar with it. So finding someone that's got more expertise there. Likewise, someone who's more into like brick and mortar kind of businesses, whatever they may be, hotel chains, cruise liners, whatever, that kind of stuff. In terms of like any popular investors that come to mind, there aren't really any, and I would. Yeah, I do have some favorite kind of popular investors for sure, but a lot of the ones I like are actually I think I like them because they're quite similar to me in their style. So I don't know how much of a help that's going to be. Some of them are more conservative than others. I mean, there's loads of great investors on eToro. Yeah, you just need to kind of spend some time going through them. There's a lot of them on my Discord as well. So, and a lot of the people on my Discord, I think, have pretty good at finding other good popular investors too. So, join the Discord if you want to kind of look through their opinions and stuff. But yeah, look at crypto, look at volatility, look at commodities, and perhaps look at geographies that I don't trade as much, and then at some of the kind of safer stuff. Maybe even someone that does like the more meme stock kind of investments or risky YOLO plays, in like healthcare and biotech and stuff like that. This debate is taking up a lot of real estate now in the chat. So I apologise to everyone watching this on YouTube that's just watching this argument unfold. I'm not getting involved because yeah, then I'll be here all day. Sorry, Jay, I'll stop. It's fine. You two can debate. Maybe honestly, we've got a politics channel in the Discord. Go on Discord and debate it, and then maybe I'll join in later. Are you going to buy some Doge? Nope. Yeah. Yeah, good work, Felix, on modding and Slug. Top 3 crypto penny. I don't have any. I don't know of any really. I don't think I own any cryptos that are outside the top 200, except Ultra. Ultra is the only one that I own that's outside the top 200 on CoinMarketCap. So I guess there's your one if you want to, but please research it on your own. Don't take my word for it. I'm just YOLOing. Any comments on ARK Invest portfolio? Yeah, I mean, Cathie Woods is certainly an interesting person. I really like the kind of the thematic approach that ARK take with their portfolios. However, I think that to some extent it's becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy, and I also think that they are, because of their size, they're actually going to struggle to get out of bad positions potentially. So if they invest in a CRISPR company or a autonomous vehicle company or something, and they're wrong, I think they're really going to struggle to find buyers for those positions because their positions are so large in some of those companies. I actually think that to some extent it's actually like a systemic risk, not to like the entire markets, obviously, but to those stocks potentially, and even some of the ecosystem around them. So some of the suppliers for those stocks and some of the companies that work with those stocks. There's an element of systemic risk because Cathie Wood has become so popular and ARK Invest has become so popular. I don't actually think they're really anything special at picking stocks, to be completely honest. They're good, definitely. Their analysts are very good. I enjoy their commentary. And as I said, I really like the themes that they've gone for, and I think they're clearly very smart. But I wouldn't say that they're actually that fantastic. I think they are a bit overhyped. But again, that's just my opinion. Don't go tell Cathie Woods. I don't want to have an argument with her. She seems like a very nice lady. It looks like I'm actually almost caught up with chat now. I'm getting there slowly. Quite bullish on green energy. What's your opinion on Bitcoin energy? I answered that already. So if you missed it, feel free to tune in on YouTube and you can watch my rant about that again. To someone completely new to the whole process, any tips on getting started? Yes. Okay, so first of all, I recommend investing in areas that you mainly understand. So it could be hobbies, it could be industries that you've worked in, it could be products that you just really like or own. Yeah, I would stick with those kind of themes to begin with because you're inherently going to know a bit more about, how good the products are, if your friends like them or not. Kind of get a good idea of sentiment because of that. And it will make researching the companies easier. Second thing is to focus on fundamentals, learn about the quickest thing to learn really that's going to be useful is learning about things like price to earnings ratios, learn about debt to equity, and think all not debt to equity, debt to liabilities to assets to liabilities. Sorry. Or assets to debt, essentially. Learn about price to book, learn about all of those sorts of things, those ratios, all of which you can find on Investopedia. Anything you don't understand, search it on Investopedia. Go make an account on Seeking Alpha and start reading some of the articles on there. You don't need to buy the paid version. There's still some really good articles on there for free. Go read those. Really, really interesting stuff. And I think it will help you kind of get into the mindset of how investors think about stuff and how they value things. And then start trading. The sooner you start, the sooner you'll start learning. Fully expect that you're going to be paying the markets for your lessons for the first year or so. And the other thing is don't use leverage. Avoid using leverage for as long as humanly possible until you really, really understand it. Because that's a way of really getting into trouble. And the other thing is just don't buy into hype. If something is hyped, then it means that everyone's talking about it. The market is already saturated with buyers, and potentially you could get stung. So be careful about things that everyone's talking about and is hyped up. Stuff that you see on Wall Street bets and stuff can be a bit dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. So that's I guess that's my stuff, my thoughts. Blink. Do you like Blink? Shorted it recently. I'm still bearish on Blink. I still think that Camper Vans is on a very good trade there. I just decided that I made enough money in a day that it was worth me taking profit. And then since then, I've just kind of not got around to reopening the short position again. But I'm still tempted to short Blink further, to be honest. I'm obviously not going to do it today. The market's already down substantially today. So today would be a bad day to do it. But it's definitely a company that I do think is at risk. Maybe not of bankruptcy, but certainly of a really sizable Nikola style event. To be honest, I just don't think that they're really actually doing anything. That's kind of my fundamental problem with them. But we'll see. I mean, it'll be interesting to see if they do something. They do have some valuable stuff, right? They do have some valuable partnerships and relationships, but so far they've not really capitalized on anything. So that's kind of my problem with them. Reset Siemens Renewable, please. Thank you. Yeah, that's one of the stocks that could be difficult to reset. So if you're wondering why I haven't done it yet, that's why. But it's on my radar. Like I will, eventually get around to cycling all of my positions. I do try, but it's not as simple as it appears at first to do that in a good way for all of my copiers. Man, as soon as I said that, I was starting to get near the end. There's more questions. You used to have dreadlocks. I did used to have dreadlocks. Yep. They were amazing. I miss them. I would not have got rid of them. I am not bald through choice. I am literally balding. You can see I've actually not cut my hair recently, so you can see like I do have hair and it just doesn't grow on the top. Jay, can you stop streaming so it's not red? Soon, Mark. Don't worry. We're coming towards a close, I think, because the number of kind of general discussion rather than questions is starting to filter through. Move away from fossil fuels and moving more to electric. What's your thoughts on mining companies for parts for batteries such as lithium? Personally, I've just never really investigated the mining side of things. I don't think that's where the money is really. Most of the time, I think you've got to be really careful with mining companies because it's all about like timing the supply and demand and making sure that other people aren't onto that same trend as you. So if I were to kind of take that approach, I think I would actually rather just trade directly on the actual commodities themselves, so on lithium or copper directly, rather than trading on companies that mine them, because I find that the concept of mining to me just feels actually a lot more speculative, to be honest, and a lot harder to kind of judge. And obviously, like the impact of like how much someone mines and what the impact that has on adding that extra supply to the market and things. There's a lot to unpack there. I would much rather invest in like a battery company, and there are some really compelling Korean stocks actually that I would love to be on eToro that I would like to invest in that space if they became available. But I don't think mining really is something that I want to do because I think you're looking much more at things that are more difficult to predict in terms of the supply and demand. and trying to predict how much they're going to mine and stuff. It's I think it's more risky. I agree with you on Elon. Um, deluded if you think they can compete with Tesla. I think they already are competing with Tesla. I think VW will sell more EVs this year than Tesla will. In the past, you mentioned that you wished you could have had more exposure to Orsted. How do you think about this company now? Yeah, I'm still really happy with them, honestly. I'm looking at the partnership deals just kind of rolling through continually. They have exposure to the entire renewable sector, basically everything, to storage and hydrogen, wind, obviously, solar. Providing it, managing those wind farms and stuff, or helping with the construction of them, like the whole thing. They're exposed to the entire industry, and I just think they're a really solid company, generally, and a really safe bet in that space. If I was forced to put all of my money into one company in the renewable sector, it would probably be Orsted, I think. Yeah, I think it would probably be. I'm trying to like second guess myself and think if there's anyone else, but no, it has to be Orsted. They're the only one that really is exposed to everything. There are some great individual solar companies out there. There's some great infrastructure companies out there that are helping more on the infrastructure side, but even that Orsted are involved with a lot as well. So yeah, generally I just really like them because of that. It just feels like it's a very safe way of getting exposure to it. It's a diversified company, in terms of the regions they're working in and stuff as well. And I just think that realistically, I think they're probably the biggest, or one of the biggest names in the sector. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Typically, after I manage to get more exposure to it, it hasn't really done very much, but I'm okay with that. What are your trading regrets that keep you up at night? None of them really. I don't get kept awake at night by bad trades. I think I've learned those lessons. I think I've learned those lessons. But maybe one day I'll have like a bad dream that I'm back in 2018, and I'm overexposed to crypto, perhaps. But like I learned, 2018 taught me all the lessons I needed on exposure. I think I don't think I've come close to being really concerned about my portfolio since then, and I touch wood, never will again. I don't really get sleep. I think I'm researching my companies enough. I think I'm not spreading myself too thinly. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with where I am in terms of exposure, and the trades I do. There's none that I really look back at with big regret, except for just generally too much greed in early 2017, and also too much not listening to myself as well. If anything, that's probably what I think about the most, is that why didn't I trust my gut? Why didn't I trust my initial thoughts on this project? Why did I second guess myself or whatever? Sometimes I get convinced by someone else's argument or something, and those are the things that actually play on my mind more than I made a mistake. It's more, well, I mean, I still made the mistake, but it's kind of the other way around, I guess. Price prediction for the year 2025 on Neo. Who knows? I don't even know where to start with that. 250, maybe. I don't know. Um, so much can change by then. So much can change by then. Very difficult to say. How far back has your hairline receded? Pretty far. Basically back to like the crown of my head almost now. There's like a little thin strip. Actually, roughly where my headset is, there's like a little thin strip there that's still there, but it started to bald at the back now, and it's meeting up with the front. So soon I'll be looking like a real granddad. Don't know if you talked about this already. I just came in. Schiller PE is over 37. Is that concerning to you? You said last quarter that you don't mind, that you don't see a sign of a crash yet. Isn't this for some reason I'm really struggling to read your comment. Isn't this one along with the expected inflation? Look, I mean, PE ratios generally have been going up for the past decade. Actually, I think realistically, people will point at this and say, "Look, PE ratio. Last time PE ratios were this higher, there was a massive crash, and it was the dot-com bubble or whatever." But like, the reason PE ratios increased going into the 2000 crash is because we were moving into a world of growth investing. And then the reason it crashed is because that went way too far. The reason that it's going up now is because growth investing is becoming the norm. It's becoming the standard. Look at Tesla. Tesla is a perfect example. A company that's just run massive losses year after year after year until it hit a point where it was sustainable, and now it is one of the biggest stocks in the world. And that is becoming the model for a lot of companies out there. And there is so much innovation going on across all sorts of different sectors that, of course, the PE ratios are going to be higher. Of course, they are. That's just the way it is. And then, of course, the other thing is that, that part of the reason that the PE ratios are so high is that stocks are more in demand because people don't want to be buying. They don't want to have their money in cash. You stick it in a bank account, you get 0.25% interest if you're anywhere in the Western world, pretty much. If you're in, US, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, UK, Europe, you're not going to be getting a very good interest rate. In most of those places, you'll be lucky to get more than 1%. So, that leaves you with limited options, and so then you go buy even if you're buying the S&P 500, half the companies in it are growth companies now. So yeah, what can you do? Even when you try and diversify and go for the safer bet, the fact is that more of the market is growth orientated now than value orientated, and it's in more demand from more people. Retail investing has never been easier. Yeah, I think it's just a product of that, and people have got to kind of adjust their expectations accordingly and kind of price it in to some extent. Like, is all of this money going to just like flood out of the market? Probably not, really. In reality, what's the catalyst that's going to make everyone run away from the markets? I don't know. Maybe a new COVID strain that turns people into zombies. Maybe it's the economy reopening. Maybe it's a debt crisis somewhere. But even in those situations, is all the money going to leave the markets? Probably not, to be honest, because where else can they put it at the end of the day? Where else can people put it? Maybe into crypto. But again, the prices there are inflated now too. You've seen the rally that crypto's had. And that's probably part of the reason for it, right? Stocks got overheated, so fund managers started trying to put more of their assets into cryptocurrency because they don't want to keep it in cash, they don't want to keep it in stocks. Where can they go? Cryptocurrency. I think that's the only way you can look at it, really. So yeah, I'm not super concerned about PE ratios getting higher. How rich are you? What's your net worth? I don't want to. I guess I don't want to share that, but probably at some point it'll become public information. I can't be that far away from someone making a Wikipedia page. How can I say this in a way that gives you some sort of an answer, but not too much of an answer? I mean, I guess I'm a millionaire. I'll say that I'm a millionaire, but that's probably as far as I'm willing to kind of share, I guess. For now, I'm sure at some point in the future it will come out. But for now, that's what I'll share. I used to be way more open about this stuff, but I guess I'm just more concerned about becoming a target as a result of it. And I think my girlfriend thinks that I have an overly optimistic and kind of nice view of the world, and I don't think there's any nasty people out there that will come and rob my house or whatever. But I don't think, or she does. My girlfriend certainly doesn't think that's reality, and that actually those people do exist, and that I should be a bit more careful about sharing that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I'm a bit more private about that stuff now. Sorry, can't give you a really good answer, but that'll help, I guess. Do you use anything else for charting, like TradingView, or all just in eToro? Yeah, I use TradingView for charts. So up here, I have one screen of charts, and I have oh, that's the wrong screen. I can't show you the other screen, I guess. And actually, my thing is just broken now. Yeah, there we go. I guess my other screen's not working. There we go. Yeah, my button's broken. So I've got that screen. I've got this screen. And then I've got my main eToro screen, and then I have oh, that's a splash screen. And then I have that's pretty much it. Sorry. Yeah, so I use TradingView for charts. I don't really use anything else for charting, just TradingView. I don't even use eToro charts really. I lost my place from scrolling. Oh no. What's the difference between Filecoin and Sicoin? Sicoin did it first. Sicoin did it more decentralized, and I think Sicoin are doing it better. Filecoin actually contained a lot of plagiarism, even in their original white paper. So, yeah, that's something to consider. Yeah, I just prefer Sicoin. I think I've okay. I found where I was again. The insanity of renewable energy, electrification, and net zero CO2 the government wants to implement wouldn't that damage crypto mining if power costs increase a ton? Why would power costs increase a ton? Power costs, if anything, will continue to come down for a few reasons. First of all, the government would be subsidizing the creation of all of this new power. And I think most governments aren't going to just turn off their other power overnight. They can't do that. It's politically unacceptable to do that in many ways. Think about the job losses and stuff, retraining the companies that are affected. The governments are probably going to want to help those companies transition into the newer forms of energy. So yeah, I don't think that's super likely to happen. The other thing is, as I said earlier, I think a carbon tax could happen, which maybe would increase the price of electricity a bit if like that's the way you see it. But then all that does is incentivize people to go to green stuff, and then more green stuff gets built. The cost of production, because of economies of scale, continue to kick in. Maybe mining turns into something that is kind of done in off-peak hours for the market. As batteries and hydrogen come online, that will make things cheaper as the power from the day can be stored and then used overnight. I don't think power costs actually are going to go up that much, really. And if they do, it's going to be as a result of that, potentially even partially. There's a lot of people that think that the price of Bitcoin is actually derived in some sense from the cost of mining it. So it would just make the price of Bitcoin go up, which would make the mining still profitable. So yeah, I'm not super concerned about it. 19 countries of the Eurozone have borrowed equivalent of 97% of GDP, where they have borrowed this money from. And does pose significant risk. Does this pose a significant long-term risk to investments? It depends on which countries really? Ultimately, it comes down to the credit rating. We've seen numerous countries now go over 100%, and there was no apocalypse. The sky didn't fall. Nothing bad really actually happened. And really, 2020 is actually what made that happen to a lot of countries. And there are countries that are approaching 200%, 300% even in some situations, and they're really not in that bad of a situation. I think what really matters actually is the relativity of it. If you are the country in Europe that's got the highest debt to GDP ratio, then yeah, you're in a bad position, because why would anyone lend to a European country that's in that position when they can pick your next door neighbor that is in a healthier position, has very, very similar economy generally? Doesn't make much sense for the lenders. Yeah, I guess that's kind of my view on it. Actually, that's been my view for a really long time as well. Like the Bitcoin community, especially, loves to talk about things like debt to GDP, and how all of the currencies of the world are about to collapse imminently. But I just don't think it's true. And the economies and governments are all, are going to go bankrupt soon. Yeah, I just don't buy it. I think it's all relative. And actually, the more the world kind of continues to head down the route of globalization, the more you can fairly compare yourself with other countries, and actually, the more nations will be considered okay, even if they have relatively high debt to GDP. What is going on in the stock markets? It's going down a bit. Not loads, but a bit. Some bad earnings for our portfolio specifically. A few bad earnings. Not even bad earnings actually, but bad guidance essentially. But apart from that, not that much. I wouldn't worry. I'm skipping some of the silly questions because there are a few. Pinterest, I haven't really looked at it. I saw they had a bad earnings, but that's really all I've looked at it. Marquee arrives roughly at the start of July. Be nice if it arrived on my birthday. That would be cool. What's the safest crypto? Probably a stable coin, but I assume you mean actual crypto, in which case I would say probably Bitcoin. What do I think about Tilray? Not much. I think the weed industry generally. I mean, I did actually look at like Aurora Cannabis and a few others probably about 4 or 5 months ago now, wondering if they were hitting kind of the real undervalued territory. But I decided not to go for it. I think part of the risk there really is that you're kind of just betting on legalization, really, trends in different states or different countries even. And then you're also, it's still a very young industry, so you're still kind of taking a bit of a gamble on who's going to win. I think probably an ETF is actually the best way of getting exposure to that. Have you played Plague Inc? Yes. Why did you buy Bitcoin at nearly 60k? Because I think it's going to go to 100k later in the year, possibly. Maybe not quite 100, but towards 100k. I still think it was a sensible place to be buying it, and the charts were telling me it was an okay place to be buying it. Essentially, those trades were based more so on momentum. So I was expecting the breakout from 60k to go higher. I actually did say that 66k would possibly be where it stopped, but my targets were more like 69k. 68, 69k, and yeah, never reached them, so I never hit my take profit. So I'm still holding the position because I'm still bullish on it over the long term. So it doesn't really make too much of a difference. What do you think about Chia? Not really looked at it, so no good opinion. You have 5k viewers, so many gamer investors. Yeah, I think most of them are just on the front page though. So most of them will have me muted. But it's cool though. I think Twitch understands that content like this is going to become more common, and if they don't take this market, then someone will start a trading streams website or something. I like Twitch. I've always liked Twitch, so that's why I stream here. I mean, I could stream on YouTube, but I prefer Twitch. Besides, look at my cool emotes. I think I'm running out of questions, so I'm going to answer like maybe 3 or 4 more. I think what I'll do, actually, I think the best way of doing this, right? I'm going to scroll back down to where the chat is now. I'm going to let the mods post any questions that they've seen repeated a lot, and anyone who's desperate to get it answered can post it now, and I'll answer it if there are any coming out. Do you think Tesco stock is undervalued? Probably not really. So that's on the London Stock Exchange, isn't it? Can't find it. There it is. They've already had their earnings, and they beat on earnings. I'm not sure actually. They are riding a little bit low. If you wanted to do a swing trade, I could see it. I could see a swing trade on it. I've invested in Tesco a few times. I've always kind of regretted it, to be honest. I'm not great at trading a company like that. Evidently, I learned my lesson. I learned I was bad at it, so I stopped. I've not said that I'm bullish on Blink at all. I've never said that I'm bullish. I'm bearish on Blink. I'm not sure where you heard me say I was bullish. If I said I was bullish, I must have misspoken. I'm most certainly bearish. I agree with Campervans, who is shorting it. People have been good at not posting repeatedly. I guess they can just post their questions. Okay, I'll try and keep going then. Tips on hedging, reducing risk on eToro. Follow Eddie B123. He hedges 13% permanent short on the Nasdaq. Wow, that must incur some fees. Thank you. 150k invested in you, 90% so far. Appreciate your efforts. Awesome. Congrats on the profits. In terms of hedging, I mean, I think it depends on your approach, really. If you're just copying people, then I would probably just trust the people that you're copying to do it, in the way that they feel comfortable doing it, in the way that they feel best hedges against their portfolio, because it really does depend on what you're holding. But I think there can at times be some really obvious hedges. So, for example, when COVID was really kicking off, and people were scared about the economy, it was the small companies that really got battered hard, and the growth. A lot of the growth companies that were very, very heavily indebted got battered hard. So it was a pretty obvious short to use instruments like the IWM, for example, and things like that, to get exposure to the smaller stocks, like more of the kind of penny stock market almost, and short that market. So that's one thing to be aware of. Like sometimes you can see pretty clear trends of where things are going to go bad, but really it depends on what your exposure is as well. If you're really heavily exposed to one industry, I mean, there's a few ways you can do it. So I mean, for example, Blink is a pretty interesting one, right? If you think that there's lofty valuations in the EV space, you could try and find an EV company that you think is overly risky and perhaps they don't really have a real product. So Nikola would have been obviously a great short. Lordstown Motors would have been a great short. I actually talked about them before that all kicked off with them as well. And I think Blink potentially is a good short as well. And that's how Campervans has chosen to hedge, because he sees lofty valuations in that market. So he's trying to find in that fluffy kind of overly exuberant market, he's trying to find the thing that is most out of place and least deserves to be there. So I think you can do that kind of thing in different markets if you want to go down the individual route. But really, the easiest way to do it is doing it with indices. I think, and potentially you can do it with currencies as well, but it gets a bit more complex if you're going to trade some of the forex stuff. But you can do that for like some of the big macro events as well. So that can be another way of doing it. I mean, there's other ways of not so much hedging. I guess it counts as hedging, right? But you can also think about like geography as well, and hedging your bets geographically, so that you're not fully invested in one country, especially if there's intense elections coming up, or if there's potential big tax stuff going through. There's ways of doing it with that as well. But there's no simple answer to hedging. I mean, portfolio balance generally is and risk actually is not a simple topic, and there's a lot of approaches you can take. Can you please have some thoughts and prayers for your portfolio recovering your minus 33% month? I don't know. You got yourself into this mess. I think you need to get yourself out of it. Don't ask us for help. As a fellow gamer, what are your thoughts on the futures of Activision and Take-Two Interactive? I think Take-Two were really unfortunate not to buy Codemasters. I would have been really happy. I think they would have done a great job with it. It really fits with the type of games they produce as well. And they're a bit unlucky to miss out. Activision Blizzard, I'm not actually that bullish on at the moment. I just feel like I don't know. It feels like they're kind of losing their reputation as like the big boys in gaming a little bit. How many people do you actually hear talking about Activision Blizzard games these days? Overwatch, StarCraft, World of Warcraft, Call of Duty. Like, they're not the games people really talk about as much anymore. And like, I think that there's a real market in games that YouTubers are playing as well. So, for example, games like Valheim, and obviously, we had Fortnite before that. We had PUBG, etc., etc. But most of these games seem to be coming from either indies or from the companies that perhaps aren't really seen as like the big blockbuster AAA game makers. So I think you kind of got to look a bit outside the box on that one. So like towards Epic Games, towards Ubisoft, maybe even. Although they do a lot of big blockbusters as well. I prefer, out of the two, I definitely prefer Take-Two over Activision Blizzard. I just think they have some really strong IPs that are still doing really well towards the YouTube audience. And are just generally good selling games. They have some sports games, which is good because you can just churn them out year after year, like NBA and games like that. So yeah, I quite like Take-Two out of the two. That's the one I would probably go for. But I haven't I haven't looked at the financials of either of them in probably like 3 or 4 months now. So I'm probably a bit out of touch with how well priced they are. But in terms of like the product side of things, Take-Two is the company that I prefer. What stocks do you look forward to shorting anytime this month? None really. I mean, there aren't really any that I look forward to shorting. Certainly not this month. I mean, like, I don't know if you're trying to get like a trading signal out of me, but yeah, there's nothing really like. I don't think when you open a short on something like Blink, for example, or Nikola, you don't necessarily really have a time frame for it. These things can go on a really long time before they implode, and before they're found out, if they're being fraudulent, for example. So like it's yeah, saying that you're looking forward to it like this month or next month or whatever, it's not really a thing. Um, and the other thing is like shorts are generally you're more likely to take a short as part of a hedging strategy, rather than specifically because you think that company is awful and doomed to fail. You'll generally be doing it to help balance off and offset another investment that's in your portfolio. In your videos, you talk about a lot about fundamental analysis. So, can you name some news sources you are looking at, except the balance sheet or new products? Like some magazines or something you look at. Well, I don't really read in magazines or anything, but I pay for access to Bloomberg. It is expensive though, so I'm not sure that that's really worth it. Unless you are trading with a good amount of money, I'm not sure if it's worth it. But certainly, if you've got like cable TV and Bloomberg's on it, you should probably watch a bit of it. It's pretty useful. Um, what else? For news, I mean, again, I really love Seeking Alpha. It's more opinion pieces, but I think it's generally pretty well informed opinions. There are some that are bad, um, but there's a good track record on there. So yeah, I think that's interesting, and you can access some of that for free. And actually, the premium for Seeking Alpha is pretty cheap. Don't go for the pro version; just go for the premium version. It's pretty cheap. There are some podcasts that are interesting. I actually think some of the industry-based podcasts are really good. There's one in the hydrogen space that I've listened to a few times. That's pretty good, called H2 Go or something. I can't remember what it's called. Something like that. I haven't listened to it in a month or so, but that was really insightful. So actually things like that can be pretty useful. Like really embedding yourself in it. I mean, the best resource for fundamental analysis beyond anything else is the investor relations page of the company that you're investing in. You can go on Ford's page, you can go and read their ESG reports, you can obviously go through their earnings, listen to earnings calls. That's actually a really noob friendly way of doing it as well. Like maybe you won't know what EBIT means and stuff like that when you're first starting out. For the numbers and stuff, but you'll quickly pick up to the types of questions that the analysts are asking, and what they're trying to get from that, and also the type of language that's being used, and the things that the management are highlighting, and also potentially the things they're not talking about. So if they're like totally ignoring a product or they're refusing to give an answer, then you can kind of read into why potentially they're doing that. Yeah, so I guess actually really the investor relations pages for the companies that you're interested in is probably the best place to look. And YouTube channels as well. They have YouTube channels. A lot of these companies, and they literally they'll explain their products and stuff on there. It's great. They have training resources on there. They have all sorts. It's good stuff. Interviews with the CEOs, all of that kind of stuff. Activision Blizzard's turning into a money grab company. That's why. Yeah, I kind of agree. Do you think Peloton will be acquired in the next year? I think it's more likely to be acquired in the next year than in years beyond that, but that's mainly because of valuation. I think there's a very real chance that Peloton could be 2x or 3x the price that it is now by the end of this year. So if that is the case, maybe not 3x. 3x is maybe a bit far, but we'll see. Depends how the year goes. Once you start getting past 100 billion, I think you become a bit less attractive in valuation for an acquisition. And I think it really, you kind of got to look at like, who would buy them. I actually think Google is the most likely candidate to buy them, to be honest. because they quite like having mainly closed ecosystems. And I think that like the brand and stuff kind of lends itself to Google quite well. Apple's already started Apple Fitness, so I don't think they're going to buy them. Microsoft won't bother.